I don't think there's much left in Mario's cart. Andrew Grantham, CIBC. Andrew, 242,000 jobs added to the US economy. The headline figure has been described as extraordinary, but the yin-yang situation with job creation but no wage inflation has reared its head once again. I mean, how concerned should we be that while there's an increase in jobs, it's perhaps not high-quality jobs?
Yeah, well, this is kind of back to the future kind of scenario here with the jobs reports. This is very much like what we've seen really throughout the last couple of years. Pretty strong employment numbers, but very little in terms of wages. And actually, before today, we were seeing, we thought we were seeing evidence of wage inflation starting to pick up, and obviously now we've got some weak wage figures today, and that seems to have at least halted, at least temporarily. I'm not sure it's that much of a concern. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're not creating high-quality jobs. It just means that the people in employment at the moment aren't getting the wage increases, and there could be a number of reasons for that. We do think that there are still a lot of people waiting on the sidelines of the US labour market, willing to come in potentially if they do start to see some wage increases, and that could be putting some downward pressure on the wages of people already in the labour market. We also need to remember as well that a lot of wage increases.
Andrew, this does seem to be a robust model in terms of increasing growth, but is it a robust model in terms of a hike from the Fed?
I think what they will need to see is signs of inflation starting to pick up. As I said before, we did think, before today's figures at least, that wage inflation was starting to pick up. And even after what was a disappointing average earnings number today, there is still a slight uptrend there. We have seen core CPI pick up and core PCE as well, which is the Fed's preferred measure of prices, start to pick up. But what the earnings figures today do show is that even if we are seeing an acceleration in inflation in the US, it's a very gradual one. It's not one that the Fed necessarily has to react to straight away. So we definitely think a March hike is off the table. Our projection is that they are going to hike again in June. That maybe we're going to start to see or continue to see some very mild strengthening in inflation up to that point. But it's certainly not the case that inflation's picking up to such an extent that the Fed's going to have to hike quickly. We do see a June hike, but then our next hike after that we have penciled in is December. So it means that the Fed can be very gradual in raising interest rates in the US.
The US dollar has basically not moved over the last month. It's a bit stronger on the good news, but what is your take on how the markets are reacting to the jobs report? There does seem to be a bit of a disconnect in terms of futures and equities.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the upward move that we'd seen in the US dollar really for a year or over a year has stalled in recent months, and actually the dollar gave up a bit of those gains as people started pricing out Fed hikes. I think in terms of what markets are pricing in, still not pricing in quite enough in terms of where the Fed may take interest rates over the next year. So even though we do expect the Fed to be very gradual in how it hikes interest rates in the future, that's still more than what the markets are currently pricing in. So we're expecting kind of one last hurrah for the US dollar, one last move up, probably moving towards that June Fed meeting. But after that, again, it could lose a little bit of that strength as the very gradual trend for the Fed takes hold once again.
Next week we have the Bank of Canada decision and the ECB meeting, which possibly the main event of the week. Many are expecting a move amid all this trend of living in negative territory. But will today's job report force the hand of central banks one way or another?
Yeah, I think the ECB next week is going to be interesting. People, again, are going in with fairly high expectations about what Mario Draghi will do, maybe cutting interest rates again. But really, there's very little left in Mario's cart in terms of what he can do in order to stimulate the Eurozone economy. So, there is a risk that we get to that meeting and people are, again, a little bit disappointed about what he does. I think there is some further stimulus coming, probably a further cut in that interest rate. But But again, it's very difficult to see him going maybe above and beyond what expectations are at the moment. Just picking up regarding the Bank of Canada, I think what is interesting going in there is that we had expectations in January that maybe the Bank of Canada was going to cut again, and we saw the Canadian dollar really slip in, USD CAD rising above 140 going into that meeting. And the weakening of the Canadian dollar up to that meeting was one of the reasons why they didn't cut, along with the wanting to wait to see what fiscal policy is going to come forward from the federal government. We have seen quite a strong rally back in the Canadian dollar now, and even though we don't expect to see the Bank of Canada take any action in the near future, they are very much on the sidelines, waiting for whatever comes in terms of fiscal policy. It will be interesting to see in the statement whether they say anything about the exchange rate, given the fact it has moved fairly significantly against the US dollar, since the last meeting. So that's worth watching, as well as the ECB.
Andrew, great to speak with you. Thank you. Well, was this a stellar report, or has it left you concerned? Let us know by commenting on this video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.